What I do comes from the bebop era. Our first tune is a Charlie Parker tune, Billy's Bounce. I hope you'll take it.
1, 2, action.
People knew when they seen me. They say, Baby Laurence, oh yes, marvelous dancer, great, greatest, you know. But I knew that New York was the only place that I could do what I wanted to do. I couldn't do anything in Maryland. And 10 years of living in Maryland had, well, I mean, proven that to me. So could I stand the pace of New York again?
I got introduced to Baby Laurence because of my late husband, Buddy Bradley. We were like brother and sister, actually, in a way, when Buddy died, because we were on the same wavelength in the way of tap and jazz. He was trying to actually educate the public that it isn't just somebody getting up and wriggling. That's why one of the reasons he was trying to get his tap clinic together. In the 70s, Baby Laurence was teaching at Jerry Leroy's on 8th Avenue. During this time, he realized that what he should do is get a tap dance clinic where you could get your feet fixed.
To do steps like. See, you got the right syncopations. You can do anything with those steps. You can just walk straight. You can do that, or you can do. The only thing that we have in this country as far as the art forms are concerned, that we can really claim to be our own is jazz, or whatever is pertaining to jazz, like tap dancing. I was working with McKinney Cotton Pickers in Baltimore in 1933, the summer, and Don Redmond asked me, could I leave Baltimore? And I said, I don't know, you have to ask my mother. She was delighted because she couldn't keep me in school. I just hung around the theaters all the time. So she said, if you see that he gets an education, then I'll let him go, you know. He did get me a tutor. I was singing. New York was my first introduction to the appetite for dancing. When I started to dancing, I was singing with Art Tatum in a place called the Onyx Club, and I'm just a kid, 13 years old, 34, and I was sitting there listening. And the things that Art Tatum was doing with his hands. And I always liked dancing, and I used to sit there and move my feet, you know, like Tatum would make runs. You know, and these things I was listening to and trying to see if I could move my feet. And by listening every night, you know, I would hear something different. When I'd go back home to Harlem, I'd sit down and in the Hoofer's Club. In the Hoofer's Club, there was a guy by the name of Harold Mavlin who started me off. And he'd started me off in showing me like time steps and turns and different things to do. But the things that he was showing me, I heard, and I got them letter perfect. But as soon as he would leave me, I'd start to hearing what I was hearing, you know, in Onyx Club, and Art Tatum. Well, I can tell you what I experienced. Charlie Parker was a teacher. He taught, unconsciously he taught the jazz greats like Coleman Hawkins and Roy Eldridge, and I think they had gone as far as they could go. And Charlie Parker had been in the ethers, you might say, had been dealing with the ethers, and he drew something from the vibrations of the ethers that belonged, yet it seemed so different, you know, at that particular time, because there was a set thing going, you see? And when Charlie Parker broke down the whole thing, people had to listen because it was right, it was rhythmically right, it was lyrically right. So now they had to go back and start listening all over again. Also, Art Tatum at the time, understand, he was alive, and Tatum had been doing these same things with the piano, but he was so fast until a lot of things just shot, you know, just shoot past you like you know, you can see things coming and you know what they are when they're coming, but they just shoot past you, you know. And Tatum was so heavy until nobody even, you know, unless they were piano players, even was involved with what Tatum was doing. Until Charlie Parker, and then people started to going back and listening to Tatum, you know. So the same thing happened to me, I think, in dancing, in touching on these people. In that I could hear what the other dancers were doing, and dancers had gone to their pinnacle, I think, you know. And I started breaking down bars and changing rhythms in 2, 3 bars, in 1 bar, and changing rhythms. In 16 bars, I would do 32 rhythms maybe, and possibly more, you know, and this is what it's about.
Horrible slaughter of sofa bed prices at the Sofa Bed Factory Sale, only at 340 Caledonian Road, London N1. Ring 01607 3096, trade and public supplied.
Come on, Diane. Back in Hollywood, you could have it all. A real penthouse suite in a real skyscraper with a real pool.
Let's have a coffee and discuss it, shall we?
Well, you know, I'm used to real coffee.
Oh, I think we can manage that.
Nescafe's special blend and roast really does have a richer, smoother taste.
Now, that's what I call a real cup of coffee.
Had a feeling you might.
Nescafe, coffee at its best.
It's 100 against 5.
Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen.
I like these odds.
Young Guns.
Follow your dreams to India. Whether you dream of pageantry and romance, or the exotic and mystical, or whether you simply dream of some of the finest beaches the world can offer. For of all destinations, India is far and away the most enchanting. How far is India? Only 9 hours away.
Watching kids doing dances barefoot on the sidewalk with bottle tops or metal pieces between their toes, he got the idea of having metal plates put on his shoes, and his name was King Rastus Brown. And the first time step looks and sounds like this. That's the first time step. And this was called a buck dance, like you
We Americans put connotations on everything. So this was a buck dance. A few years later, I've heard that said in some better surroundings. A few years later, a man by the name of Jack Wiggins added a new dimension to this buck. And he was doing a flying step that is now called a wing. And the first wing just looked like this. And then people started to say, he looks like he's got wings. So here you got the connotation, buck and wing. And the first wing step looked and sounded like this. Just a simple step, nothing. So now we had the buck and wing, right? The over the top went like this. Yeah. And the trenches usually followed up the over the top, and they went like this. In Bill Robinson's time, there was a man by the name of Eddie Rector that brought along a step called a Bamalina. And the Bamalina sounded and looked like this. Hey, that's the Bamalina. A few years later, Bill Robinson came along on the scene, and he created a time step that sounded a little different from King Rastus Brown, and it went like this.
Other dancers would realize that Bill Robinson mostly danced on his toes, and it became more jazzy after their inspiration from John Bubbles, who introduced the heel beats with cramp rolls and things like that, which added a lot more rhythm, which is what produced a Jazz Hoofer.
While I go into this dance and tip a tap for you. That's a boy, keep it down. Keep it real down. I had the orchestra cut out right here. I wanted y'all to hear what I'm gonna do. It ain't much, but ain't no use letting it go to waste. I stayed up all night to get this first step together. I didn't make it, but I'm gonna try it anyhow. I'm glad I got that one out of the way. John Bubbles come along and changed the whole trend of jazz tap. And he started a time step with a cramp. A cramp is the thing that goes like this. That's a cramp, and when it's done fast, it sounds like that. Simply done, it's just 4 beats. Toe and heel, and it sounds like this. Now, that's the beginning of the cramp roll. But when it's done in action, it sounds like this. And the rhythm turn goes like this. That was fun. That was me on there. I couldn't help that.
Up on Your Toes, that was Bill Robinson. By the time that Baby Laurence and people like Chuck Green, who were jazz tap dancers, came along, it was Down on Your Heels. And that's the reason that Baby Laurence called himself a jazz tap percussionist, because very often Baby would exchange rhythms with great jazz drummers like Max Roach, Sonny Payne, all of them.
So what takes place after the first 2 stanzas, the drummer and I do some 4-bar and 8-bar breaks against one another's sound. I hope you'll dig this. And it is called An Afternoon in Percussion. I hope you dig it.
During the 50s and 60s, which were very mean times for tap dancing and jazz, there was no work. Tap dancing was like a dirty word or something.
Bill Robinson died in 1949. That was the beginning of the decline of the tap dance era. And people had to find work. And a lot of guys just became 9-to-5ers and gave it up, you know, with the exception of a few cats like Bunny Briggs and myself. We chose to stick to it.
Baby Laurence managed to survive, and thank goodness he was working with all the great stars, Red Fox, Flip Wilson, Monterey Jazz Festival, New York Jazz Festival, all of them. Baby Laurence's funeral was one of the most unusual that I have ever seen. Everybody, anybody that could put on a pair of tap shoes was there, and everybody did about 4 or 8 bars, whatever they could do. That was their way of saying goodbye to Baby. They all loved him, and they were all there to prove it. It really wasn't like a funeral.
Surely, tap dancing is one of the glories of American culture. And Baby Laurence was one of the great dancers, not only for what he contributed technically to that complex idiom, but also because he was a great dancer. And it is surely our loss that during his life, his work was not better known and better loved by us all.